Hello and welcome to the Patches In podcast. My name is Dom and this episode is just myself. I don't know how many episodes I've done by myself. It doesn't seem like a lot. I think Cambridge has done a few, Hugh hasn't done any, but what we were trying to do, it's been a couple of weeks since we've had a chance to speak to each other. Any time we've tried to record any podcasts, so that things have unfortunately just got away from us. But hopefully this will tide you over until the next time. Well, we hope it will be a lot sooner than this. But yeah, so when was the last time we actually put up an episode? Because I remember it was like we were doing it over Discord, and it was quite like it was a good laugh, and we kind of got used to doing that. And then just the whole of July just seemed to be like everyone had a lot of things going on. I know myself with work, it was quite like a lot of stuff we had to get done. And I know the boys probably are the same. But we've been up to quite a lot. Like, I've been at gigs, playing lots of games. I could maybe just give my piece that I've been doing the last couple of weeks. So I've been enjoying playing some great games. Some of the games the boys have been talking about as well. So Vampire Survivor came out on Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, should I say. And yeah, I've been really enjoying that kind of game where you just, you don't need to really be creative the game. You can just kind of be an autopilot, but it does have some sort of story, which is great. And, it's not the greatest of graphics. It's not, meant to be the greatest of graphics. It's supposed to be like a throwback to the old sort of side-scrolling games. It's got a lot of like achievements you can get from just playing different characters, using different move sets. But yeah, like worth a wee play. I've enjoyed it. I've still been enjoying it. I've also been playing the AEW Fight Forever game. I've decided to play it on both the Nintendo Switch and on PC, just to see like what the big differences were between them. Like, obviously you've been hearing like the Switch isn't powerful enough to run a lot of like third party games, and yeah, this is one of the ones that don't really run the best, but the game itself is still solid. If you did like your Aki games, like Aki Engine games, that was like WCW versus NWO Revenge or WrestleMania 2000, those types of WWE or WWF games back in the day. It just feels so great just playing those types of games again, and it has like a lot of variety with like the move sets and that. The story mode's a bit of crack as well. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek with a lot of the stuff, but the cutscenes on the Switch are just horrendous. It glitches. It's very jank, as we'd say, very like choppy. You can tell where like the frame rates dip and the graphics aren't like the best, but on PC it looks a lot better. But that's not by much. By like it runs a bit solid, but yeah, for the first attempt at a main game, I think this is their first game in like forever by the Aki Engine guys as well. So they've, it's more of a love letter to the old school games that, I know the AEW wrestler guys are big gamers, so it's fun to see them have like a lot of fun with the game or advertising the games and stuff. I do prefer it on the Switch. I know, as crazy as that sounds, because it's like the throttle and the bottleneck of the CPU, but I don't know, having a portable wrestling game like that, you'd always think back like probably 20 plus years to have a game like that you can have now as a full grown adult. You're like, yeah, I love this. But then you've got to realise you've got a job you've got to go to, and you're like, ugh, this is rotten. I've also been playing the new DLC from Mario Kart. I've been having great. It's one of those games like when's Mario ever went wrong? With the new DLC with the characters and that. I was expecting a bit more. I don't know, more guests and more like random characters, more like newer maps. But a lot of the maps that they've been using are like the old school maps that they've had for other Mario Karts. But they've been using a lot for the mobile game, which I find very strange. Like, I didn't know Mario Kart mobile was still going, if I'm going to be honest. I thought that was kind of like one and done with Mario Run, and then nobody played that. But Mario Kart still seems to have a lot of life in it, and people were, well, I don't know if they were happy with paying for it, but I mean, I definitely was like, doesn't seem like anything great. But the level was London level, and it was fine. So how do we go of the Pikmin 4 demo? Obviously that's out now, and I've not really had much of a chance to play that. But yeah, more Pikmin, and on a first party game always looks great on the Nintendo Switch. Your doggy pal and more of the Pikmin same. So unfortunately it's not too much to talk about with that. But again, it's just, if you played Pikmin, it's just more Pikmin with more characters and stuff. So I'm going to hopefully get like a few hours into that. But I know Angie's been playing Cult of the Lamb, and like she really likes that game. And again, it's one of those ones, it's like very cutesy sort of art, but it's got like a lot of great design, great characters, like a farming sim slash. So I was wanting to say this: the boys of the new difference between roguelike and roguelite. But we'll see. Like, if anyone's listening to this, like, write in what you think the difference is, and then I'll say to the guys the next time we record, I'll see like what their answers are, and we can match up. But I didn't know there was a difference until Angie was playing this, and we were like, oh, so there is. But I'd played that game like a while ago when it was the Definitive Edition came out on the Switch, but I just kind of was like, yeah, okay, I'll get back to it, and then just never played it. And Angie was just looking for something to play and was like, this looks fun, and yeah, she's been really enjoying that. So speaking of other games I've been playing, I managed to get a few hours into Sonic Origins. I mean, this is not like anything to write home about, if I'm going to be honest. It's basically a reskin of the original Sonic 1, 2, 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, but you've got Amy, you've got Sonic, Knuckles and Tails. You can play all the games with all those characters, and it's out on all the main platforms. Been playing it on like the Switch, and yeah, it's just more Sonic. It's nice to see Sonic on that, but a lot of people are complaining with like the new added functions of like the jump dash. Like, that's basically when you jump and just before you hit the ground you can spin off, and it breaks the game. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really notice too much of a difference. People saying it's just not the same. I think they've changed a couple of music tracks as well for licensing purposes. Like, I don't know if the Genesis or the Mega Drive had some issues with that, but I really didn't notice the difference there. But I did play maybe about an hour of the first one, an hour of the second one, and about 15-20 minutes of the third one, and I was like, you know what, I'll get back to this when I've got some time, and get some emeralds, because I do remember like enjoying grabbing all the emeralds in all the games, especially free when you got like the extra bit there. That was great. And I've also been trying to catch up with like a lot of the mobile gaming and stuff. There's been a few big updates that have been happening with with Dragon Ball Legends, with the new DLC slash, like, not DLC, more packs that have came out, and yeah, it's more of the same. And your community, like, you can't please the community all the time, but especially like you've got all this new stuff that's coming out, and you can't really catch up with it at the moment because you haven't released it, or you've not done the animation yet, or it's all these factors that fans have been, they want something new. They want something new. They don't want Dragon Ball Z again, Dragon Ball GT. This game's been going on for like 5-6 years now. You've kind of went to that well all too many times. But there's other mobile games that have came out that I've enjoyed. Well, one that you actually don't need to do anything at all. All you need to do is just put your phone on charge and go to sleep, and that's of course Pokemon Sleep. I've had it for like the past week or so. Haven't noticed much improvement in the sleep part of it, but the actual game itself, it's quite badsy for the microtransactions, I would say. There's a lot that's there. They expect you to, with this game, you don't know they're going to fully support. they're expecting you to put a lot of money down for little things to help your Pokemon sleep. And you'd think, oh, when you go to sleep, they'll recover HP. That makes sense, but they don't. But they want you to buy things for them to sleep beforehand with like incense or pillows and stuff. And your Snorlax is just a big fat Snorlax that you just feed. And you're like, man, that guy's got it going. I wish I had that kind of life. And the more you feed him, the bigger he gets. And the bigger he gets, the more points you get. And you're like, that's easy. Man, I wish I had that kind of life. But it's great seeing like the Pokemon and, they have their own different sort of sleeping styles. And then there's like 1 to 4 star ratings. Rarer, like the more chunkier your Snorlax is, the rarer the Pokemon it looks like is. They say they have sleeping events, which I'm like, what, they're going to just get everyone to sleep at the one time? I was like, I just don't get how that's going to work, especially if it's going to be with like, make sure you nap at this particular time, so when you wake up you get maybe a Mew, or it's an interesting idea, but I don't really understand why they're charging so much money at the start of this. It's not like Pokemon Go, where they've had a couple of years to understand what works for the fan base, what they like, what they don't like. But obviously they're been a bit hot water a couple of months ago. We're taking them with the remote pass and stuff. But I did play a wee bit of Pokemon Go today, actually, just to see what the updates were. And I was actually saying to Angie, it was like a bunch of like updates of, they had like all these events that were on, but you've got to click through them all just to get through to the start. And it took me at least 5-10 minutes to get through all the nonsense. And yeah, just exactly the same. But if you want an experience where it can actually try to help you sleep, I've seen a few people saying it's actually helped them get to bed on time, because you don't realise, like, you go to bed maybe half an hour early before you try to get to sleep, like, keep away from electronics. It gives you some like tips if you're not too familiar with like how to get good night's sleep. I mean, I'm not like a doctor or anything like that, so they won't really listen to my advice, but the game at least tries to, like, if you're struggling from this, go and see a physician, or what not to drink and eat before going to sleep, what helps you get there, and exercising helps, all the stuff that they tell you to do, but you're like, oh, I'll do that, and then you never do because you're just too tired. You're just so tired. But yeah, there's been other things going on. Me and Andrew were very fortunate, very lucky to get some free tickets for a gig, which was very, very, very cool. And it was to go and see Motley Crue and Def Leppard. It was, it was a gig of two halves, I would say. I mean, that's like, a very, a very silly thing to say, but I mean, like, that's basically what it was. I have seen both these bands before. Well, God, like, I'm trying to remember the last time I seen like Motley Crue. I think it was like 10 years ago, when we were playing like Donington, Download, or Monsters of Rock, if you're the older generation there. Probably myself, just me. Like, those guys, they were great. They've like, I think it's very hard to not like them. They're kind of like, they are dad rock. They've been like together for like decades, and when they came out, they were, it was when you play a gig in Scotland, you expect rain, but they came out and absolutely great. Didn't seem like they missed a beat. They obviously played maybe a little bit slower, but guys have been going since the early 70s. I'm sure they've actually earlier than that, but I think it was like the 70s. And it's the same band, same guys, like, kept going. Even the drummer losing his arm in that car accident, and they managed to, like, build a drum kit that was all electronics to help them play, and it's crazy great. And yeah, like, when you see a band like that, you're like, wow. So usually they had like they were at dual headline tour, so you'll have one band that headlines one night and the other band will headline the next day, and they kind of just, they bunny hop over each other. And so the guys were out in the 70s and they came out, they were like crazy great, sounded amazing. And then you had Motley Crue, who came out, and you're like, whew, guys, 10 years ago, I remember when I seen them, I was like, oh, that was okay. It was pretty rough, very much similar to like what they played like maybe 5-6 years before that, and you're like, all right. So 10 years later, you're thinking, well, you know, they'll still play the hits and stuff like that, and I know they've been on YouTube and news and stuff like that for miming on stage, and you could understand why, but it's more like it's a click track and stuff, so I can understand why people think they're playing to like a backing track, and it's like no, they have that for like harmonies and other, like, to keep mostly the time. It's mostly keep the drummer in time and the bassist in time, generally, in my personal experience. But the only person that really seemed to be like, no, that's a lie, there's two people that were like giving it their all, and that was Tommy Lee on the drums. He was great, he was really, but he's always put on a great show. And Mick Mars, unfortunately, obviously before the things that are going on with Motley Crue, isn't with them at the moment. I don't know if he'll ever come back. But they had John Five come in, who I've seen a few times. He was with like Marilyn Manson. Never seen him with Rod Zombie. Like, he's a great guitarist. You look at him and you're like, oh, that guy's just like a mad goth. That's what he does. He's not that great on guitar. He'll just hit bar chords, but he's like such a phenomenal guitarist. Like, he's crazy good. But yeah, he's currently playing with Motley Crue, and it was nice to see him. He was like, he did fit in quite well, I would say, with the guys for it. But my God, that Vince Neil, man, like, those YouTube videos don't really do it justice with him badly singing. Like, when you see him live, you see him running about, and you're like, man, like, you know, not to slate on anybody's singing abilities and that, but when you've got like a certain range that you need to hit, maybe either downtune the guitars a bit so you can sing in that range, or, you know, cut out the drinking and the fatty foods and stuff, and that will help with, like, you know, your ability to sing, because he was rough. Nicky was alright. Nicky Six Spaces, he was fine. Running about and stuff like that. He brought a girl up on stage awkwardly, and we were like, what? And then that was it. But, you know, saying all that, like, you know, all the complaints, it was still alright, you know, with the rain and stuff like that. You know, you're just, sometimes at gigs, like open gigs like that, you're like, man, if I paid money for this, I'd be raging. But since I didn't need to, you know, there were free tickets, we were like, do you know what, can't really complain. And they did have a good set. It was just, I don't know, I've spent most of the time laughing, which is, you know, I mean, that's still a bit of fun, right, isn't it? So I know Angie enjoyed it as well, which was nice. It was fun. It was a great gig, great gigs to see it. But, like, you know, a band that's 10 years older than, you know, young guys coming out and blowing them out the water, I still was like, that's pretty funny. You know, it was like a British and American headline tour, but hopefully if Motley Crue, you know, don't unretire, like, if they retire again, then unretire, and then they retire and say, no, this is the last ever tour we'll do, and then come back out again, you just feel like, guys, come on, stop having your goodbye tours. So apart from that, I didn't really do much. It's just been work for me. But we'll try to jump into some gaming news. I mean, I know it's been 3 weeks, so there's like, I mean, I don't really want to, you know, go all the way back to some stuff, so I'll do some quick stuff that I'm interested in. With Mortal Kombat 1, with their DLC characters kind of already announced. Well, I mean, I think Hamish would just be happy with Homelander being there, but Omni-Man from Invincible and John Cena's Peacemaker being there as well. You know, it's like, you know, that's 3 superhero characters that we've got in Mortal Kombat, which is very, you know, you'd think they would probably be better with like Injustice. That, I think that might have been a better use of them. I don't know, like, because again, superheroes, you know, it's just strange. Ed Boon's a strange man. But I mean, this game just looks very strange. I mean, they already got like Jean-Claude Van Damme put in for Johnny Cage. Like, you know, that's, you know, the whole thing of like, oh, look, it's a big reset and it's changing things, and look, we're doing stuff that's interesting. The game looks okay. Like, there's only so much you can do with like the graphics, as long as the gameplay is great. Like, I'm really looking forward to that. But, you know, it's their first kind of reborn universe where I think Raiden is in the game, but is not Raiden. He's not the lightning god, obviously, now, because it's a reboot. God, like, they just make everything so confusing, don't they? Because, right, I think I tried to explain. It was like, it's now the fire god Liu Kang instead of Raiden. Raiden's kind of went, yeah, peace out, I don't want to do any of this bullshit anymore. And everyone's like, cool. And they kind of went, this is a new universe where Scorpion and Sub-Zero are brothers and some shit. And you're like, this is bizarre. Why did we do this? Why did we do this to ourselves? But there's other ones there, like, obviously, like, if you've, you know, Hamish hasn't been screaming about it, that Homelander and a couple of the people from The Boys, Black Noir, and Light, I was about to say Light Star, what's her name? Bright Light chick. Starlight, there we go, I knew I would remember it. Starlight, they're all skins on Call of Duty, and people are like, yeah, I guess that's okay. And you're like, oh, you expect a wee bit more. But then obviously they'll be pushing through it because the next season, The Boys, will be out soon, which will be pretty sweet. So other big news is like Spider-Man 2, got another trailer with Venom, and you got to see kind of what he looks like there. And then afterwards they revealed the new Spider-Man PlayStation 5, which looks really nice. You know, it's like a Venom kind of ink bleeding into the red with the Spider-Man logo. Very similar to what they did with the Spider-Man PS4 Pro or PS4 Lite Slim, I think it was. Like, it was like that kind of red, but the red's got a bit of, well, I say a bit, like, just black over the top of it. Yeah, look, it looks like more Spider-Man. Harry's been shown, which is pretty cool. We'll see more of that, like, you know, development, and if you know, everyone's suspecting that Harry's going to be Venom, and I don't know, like Insomniac was saying, like, you know, yeah, it's not as clear as they make it out to be, and then like, see if it is, I'd be actually very sad, and you'd be like, oh, it's exactly like what you kind of alluded to. I don't know if you could have, like, you know, make Harry Carnage. I think that'd be pretty cool, but you need kind of change little things like that. Other things with Square Enix saying that Final Fantasy 16 was amazing for them. Like, you would want to say duh to that, because people have been wanting this game forever. I know Hugh has been, he just actually said he finished it recently, so I wonder if he's what his opinions are. I'm sure he will have like an hour of the podcast where he talks about it and goes, it's amazing, this is like the greatest things ever, and then me and Hamish will just look at each other going, yeah, so we didn't want to talk about Final Fantasy that long, but anyway, Hugh, and then he'll bring it back. So mark my words here, in this moment here, that Hugh will want to speak for about an hour. So there's not much else with big news, I don't think. Like, I know, like, there's all the things that are happening currently with the merger, with all the stuff with like Microsoft, and that's all up in the air, and we're not too sure what's going to happen with it, and people saying it's not fair, and you know, especially when it's with like Call of Duty. Like, I understand that Activision, you know, that's like their bread and butter. Like, you know, they always get that one sort of game for a while that they go like, let's run this into the ground. COD, not so much. COD's been quite consistent. I know Capcom's been doing really well with like Street Fighter 6 and Resi 4 Remake. Like, they've kind of went, oh, look at what you can do when you do a brand new game, but you also can stay true to like remaking stuff and giving people the same game. So you're like, where do you draw the line there for them? But Activision's the takeover from that. You want to make sure like the audience get the best that you can give them, because there's not much point of like stopping folk from getting access to games. But then if you're spending all that money on a company, you want to have all the exclusives you can. You want them to just have your console. And a lot of people, you know, that might be the end for them. They go like, no, I'd swear I would never get a Xbox, and like, I'm not going to get an Xbox, so I guess I'll never play Call of Duty again. I think there'll be very few and far between. I think if you really, when push comes to shove, people will, you know, I don't know, I'll just buy it, or buy Game Pass at least, if they can somehow work Game Pass onto the PlayStation, that would be unreal. I don't think that would happen, but yeah, you never know. Probably the last wee thing maybe to talk about, because, well, I don't have the boys to talk about this and see what their opinions are, that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. People have been, I don't know, fighting with each other over the fact that when people were saying it was the only way that you could play this game was on PlayStation 5 because of the SSD. Like, there was a big thing was about the loading, and that could never be put on PC, or, you know, everyone knows that's kind of nonsense. PCs can basically do whatever high-end consoles claim that they can do, always. PCs are built differently. You can optimize them more with more custom stuff. You could eventually make anything run on a PC. I mean, they always say about, like, does it run Crysis free, or, you know, that's the big that's the big thing that they try to claim. But people have been doing videos and testing between it, saying, like, even if you run it on like a hard drive, just like a HHD or HDD, sorry, not HDD, right, hard disk drive, no, HDD, you can still run the game at a decent frame rate. It doesn't need to be the 120 frames or 60 frames 4K. You can still play the game. So it's like, I think people are taking it too literal, you know, rather than being like, this game, you know, it's a PlayStation game. You know, PlayStation have been doing quite well with their games coming to PC. Again, exclusive, like the exclusive parts of it, they'll, you know, if they give it to Epic or Steam or whoever buys them, gets it first dibs. Like, you know, I didn't think Insomniac Spider-Man would come to PC, but that came to PC with Tom Holland face and all. But, you know, when you look at any of the trailers, you do see that at the bottom saying, you know, until next year for Spider-Man 2, and you're like, they've already kind of went, it's going to come to PC eventually. Same with Final Fantasy 16. You know, everything will just come to PC, and, you know, you can play it first on console, and that's not too bad. But yeah, I know that's like kind of a roundabout way just to be like, does it really matter what console that you play it on? I think it's more like, where would you want to play it on first if you want to get out of the gates. But I do think nowadays that you get punished for being a first time buyer of anything, because, you know, 6 months later it's on the sale and it's got all the DLC that you paid full price for on it, and you're like, fuck, why did I spend all that money when I could have just waited a couple of months? But it's the FOMO effect, I guess, you know, to miss out on anything. But yeah, I guess that's really all. I didn't really want to spend rambling too much, because, you know, it's been a good couple of weeks, nearly a month from what I can see here, where you've not heard anything from us, and we are still here, we are still doing things, we are still playing games. But next time, hopefully, I say that, we'll have a bit more back and forth, and I won't be by myself. But until next time, guys, see you later. Damn it, I hit the wrong button. Ugh, every time.